and enjoy. Welcome to another special episode of All Star Sports, where we have Dan White, an MLS insider here. Dan, we're excited to have you.
Thanks so much, Gabe. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to talk MLS. We're going to talk FCC versus Atlanta. We're going to talk Columbus Crew versus New England Revolution. It'll be great, but I know there's a bunch of boring sports coming first, so you go ahead with that.
Rob, anything to say?
No, I'm glad to have Dan here. He is an MLS insider. I know he's a Crew guy, Columbus Crew guy, so we have to fight it out between FCC and Columbus. But it's a great show, and I'm excited to be here.
Let's get down to business.
Well, we also have a sponsor, right?
Yes, Sycamore Premier is sponsoring this video. They're a great soccer club. Go join them today.
Nice.
And from last week's trivia question, Brad Wittenbaum, Jeff Palmer, Tanya Panetti, Fred Wittenbaum, they all got that right, and we're excited to have Fred Wittenbaum next show, our NBA insider here. Fred, we're looking forward to have you.
Absolutely.
And let's get down to our first part of business.
Yep.
Antonio Brown trade and the NFL free agents. What do you think of that?
Well, I know there's a trade that almost went through to the Bills. He said he wouldn't report to the Bills. He's talking about wanting a new contract. I think a little bit of a prima donna there. I'm a little biased because I'm a Bengals fan, not a Steelers fan.
Yeah.
But I will say that I think it's going to be tough to trade him because he's a high maintenance guy, right?
Yeah. The Jaguars also cleared up a lot of guys, and they're expected to sign Nick Foles. If they don't sign Nick Foles, they're probably going to sign Teddy Bridgewater because the Jaguars really don't have a quarterback. I mean, Cody Kessler, Blake Bortles. I mean, Nick Foles. What are the chances Nick Foles is going to go to Jacksonville?
I think it's pretty high, and I think Nick Foles is a champion. He did a great job for the Eagles. I think Jacksonville should be excited. What do you, Dan?
I'm a huge fan of Bortles, mostly because I've watched a couple sitcoms in which they mention how great Bortles is, and really appreciate all of the action he's done in Jacksonville. I mean, they made the playoffs last year, so it could have been something, but unfortunately it didn't work out.
Agree with Dan. I mean, anything else? You guys? Bennett from the Eagles, they're finalizing a deal with the Patriots, and his brother said he might come out of retirement to play with Bennett.
Be exciting for them to play together. We'll see how the Patriots navigate that, but they're always a contender, right?
Always.
Yep.
Never count Brady out. And there's one more thing I want to get to in the NFL.
Yes, sir.
Gronk retiring. Do you think he's going to retire this season? I mean, he has 1 year left on his contract.
I think he's not going to pass it up. They're coming off a championship year. I think he'll go one more year. I think Tom Brady will convince him to stay. That's just my 2 cents.
Okay. Our next part of business is the North Carolina and Duke game. Last North Carolina and Duke game, Zion Williamson had a huge injury only 20 seconds in, costing Nike millions of dollars. Do you think he's going to play this game? He's the reason that Duke's winning.
Yeah, he's not ready yet. He's a surefire number 1 pick in the NBA draft. I think he's going to take his time, but Duke sure could use him, couldn't they?
Yep. Dan?
Yeah, dark blue versus light blue. Back to you.
Okay. Anything else you guys want to say about UNC? I think RJ Barrett's more important than Zion. I mean, he's the X factor. He's the one who gets everybody to play well.
Well, I think that it's amazing that kind of lineup they have. They'll go deep into the tournament, and this might be one of their best squads ever.
I don't think they're ready yet, though. All freshmen.
Yeah.
Not all freshmen, but 3 freshmen in the starting lineup.
Yeah, they are young. You're right. A year out of high school. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, MLB spring training and the contracts. What do you think of the Harper and Machado contract?
You know what? I mean, that's just chump change. $330 million. You make more than that doing this show for a week, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So here's what I say. A lot of those long-term contracts don't work out. So I would be leery if I were a general manager. On the other hand, these 2 guys are 26 years old, and they're long-term deals, but they got a lot of runway ahead of them. So, we'll see what happens. I don't think it makes them surefire contenders right away, but big contracts, they finally got it done, and they're great players, no question.
Yeah, Bryce Harper and Manny Machado aren't coming off of their best seasons, and I don't think this is the best time to offer them one of these huge contracts. But I mean, you gotta do what you gotta do to get a superstar. Dan?
Yeah, I think one of the things about Bryce Harper going to Philly is when you have $330 million, what is it, over 13 years, something like that. It is an insane amount of money, but at least we know how much money you have to pay someone to live in Philadelphia now.
Yes, Philadelphia's an expensive city. You need that $330 million for sure.
Yeah, that's a lot of cheesesteaks.
Yeah, that's right.
lot of
Absolutely.
cheesesteaks.
A lot of cheesesteaks.
Okay. The MLS. Dan, that's what we got. That's what you're here for.
The MLS has such an exciting season. The first
Let's
Saturday
talk
and
about
Sunday.
FCC.
We're going to talk about last week first.
Okay.
Here's what's crazy. So FCC may have a chance because the only team to not score a goal out of all of MLS last week was Atlanta. The returning champions, and they didn't even score a goal. Every other team in MLS scored one. Even FCC's, they did it in Seattle. It was the first goal of their MLS history, and then they promptly got spanked 4-1 in Seattle.
Don't remind us, right, dude?
4-1 in Seattle. Now, there was some game before the MLS season. That's when the Crew and FCC were playing their first unofficial Hell is Real derby at the Charleston Cup. The Crew, of course, came away victorious for the third year in a row. They should probably just start calling it the Crew Cup instead of the Charleston Cup. But it gave FCC a chance to sort of play around with their guys and see what kind of team they would be. Unfortunately, we saw in Seattle, not much of a team at all. A few great stars. They just got, how do you say his name? Saif, who is a U.S. men's national team veteran who may be able to gel the team. I just don't think they have a captain to pull it together or a program to kind of push it through. They spent more money than any other USL team in history last season and blew everyone else out of the water. I mean, won more games than any other USL has ever won. They come into MLS and they're going to the most expensive team in Atlanta. It's going to be a very interesting game, but you got Martinez up front, and behind you've got Guzan in the goal. You got Parkhurst with the captain's armband. You got Pogba back there, and Nagby running around in the middle of the field. So I don't think FCC is going to come away with a win, but I think they have learned some things. It's not going to be 4-1, maybe 3-1.
This is not gonna. I feel like this is not gonna be a victorious season for the FC Cincinnati. I mean, they're gonna kind of like play around in the MLS, find like what they're best at, how to play in the MLS. So I don't think this is going to be a great season, but in the next couple of years, I feel like FCC can make a long run if they really do the right things.
I agree. I think it's exciting for the city, drawing 25,000 fans a game. In a couple short years, they went from a minor league soccer team to a big league team. So I'm excited for the future here in Cincinnati and to eventually be your Crew, Dan.
Yeah, well, they sell more tickets than the Crew do, so kudos to that. I think, speaking of the Crew, they're going to, in fact, just in a couple hours, they'll be at, or less than an hour,
They'll be at the New England Revolution.
New England Revolution, which is an exciting game. Brad Friedel is the New England Revolution coach, who, of course, used to be goalie years ago for the Columbus Crew. So this is kind of an interesting rivalry, a new coach versus one of our old goalies. But, of course, who do we have in goal but U.S. men's national team goalie Zach Steffen, who has a record contract to join Manchester City in the summer. So that'll be a really great game to watch. I think the Crew is going to come away victorious. They've obviously already shown themselves to be a much stronger team just in this first game.
FCC can go far. I
Yeah.
feel like, I mean, we have great fans.
I
We have a
believe
young team, a young talented team. I feel like we can go far.
They could find their motion and click and start winning games, but as soon as we start seeing them at home, I think we'll kind of see what kind of play they're going to do in front of their own fans with their own energy. With the Revolution, it should be an interesting game. I think that the challenges that they'll have with New England is on their home turf. Although last season, New England actually lost a bunch of games at home, so we'll see how that plays out. But I have the Crew winning 2-1. It could be 3-1. Caleb Porter, the new coach, has been talking about being more aggressive both at the back and the front end.
You heard it here first. And Dan, thanks for bringing Stadium Mustard back to Mountfree Stadium.
Yeah, follow @Crew962. That's my Wiener account on Twitter.
We're running up against a commercial break. What else you got, Gabe?
March Madness. This is the second to last topic we have, and anything to say? What's your prediction? Who's gonna win?
You know, I still think Duke is going to go all the way, but you heard it here first.
I mean,
Michigan is going to make the Final Four.
Villanova. I'm surprised with them. They're not even ranked.
I know. It's
I mean,
an up and down year.
Up and down year, definitely. At a point, I mean, they weren't even in the top 10, were they?
I don't know. This wasn't their year. Another team, and you know, sorry to Ryan Cross, who's a big fan of West Virginia, but they had a tough year. Bob Huggins in West Virginia. So teams that were powerhouses in the past, it's just not their year. But I think UC's going to make the tournament. Cincinnati, I think Michigan's going to go really far, but ultimately my call is Duke. Who's your pick?
I'm thinking it's hard because there's a lot of okay teams, not okay teams, but teams that can win, but they're young and they can't go far. So I ultimately think it's going to be North Carolina. I mean, if they win this game versus Duke, then they can go far. I mean, they have Luke May. He's a great player.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see him in action tonight. And our last topic is Tiger Woods. You think he's going to be winning a major?
You know, now we hear he's got a neck injury. Tiger Woods has had a rough slog the last couple of years. He did, you know, get back in the top tier of golfing. But my pick is, you know, I wish him the best, but I don't think he's going to another major. How about you?
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, he's a great golfer, but he's too old.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think Dan is older than him. So,
Okay.
I think we're like the same age,
Yeah.
being Tiger, and I think he could come probably to the Memorial and win. Not everyone shows up to that, and he could probably take it because it's a
You think he could
course
beat
he likes.
Tiger? You think he could beat Tiger?
Yes, at a game of checkers, not golf.
That will
Awesome.
end our show today. Thanks for joining us. Make sure to hit that subscribe and like button.
Go Crew.
Thanks, guys.